Well, here's the update on this contraption. So I think this is the first post-dyno video. So you guys probably just thought it blew up or something. So here's what happened. So although this looks the same, that's a new turbo. Because if you pan back to the dyno video, on the last dyno pull, it made a noise, I don't know, kind of like a wood chipper or something spooling up right before the turbo actually spooled. And I thought the noise was weird and couldn't put my finger on it. Then I drove it around on the street a little bit, kept making the same noise every time the turbo would spool. And then one day the turbo stopped spooling. And here's the reason why. So here is the old turbo, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at the blades there, you can see they actually have relieved themselves into this groove, and I don't even know how it was hitting out here, but it's worn all over, and you can see it sounds great. You can wiggle it. It's kind of hard to see, but it does wiggle. The exhaust was doing the same thing. See, the ends are polished there. But what I did was I bought the exact same turbo, but I bought it this time from VS Racing, and it's another just generic GT45, and I just removed the new exhaust housing off of it, and I slammed the center and the compressor into the old exhaust housing, and it actually fit. Well, it fit except for one exception. It turns out that the oil drain is, I don't know which direction, but it's slightly off from the old one. Because when I tightened the old oil drain fitting, or the one off the other turbo, well, it broke in half. Because it's actually hitting the flange here. I tried grinding it a little bit, it's just not going to work. Tried putting a pipe on it, it's too close. So I'm going to have to make an actual, like a tube that kicks out around it before it goes back to my actual drain hose. But it's not that big of a deal. It's probably for the better anyway. That thing was pretty close to the flange. So it'll probably prevent problems down the road if that hose were to melt or something. That's why I had it wrapped and all that goodness. And the running theory on why the turbo went is because right in this plate here, and I can probably post a picture of it or whatever, but there's a restrictor in the oil feed line, and it's small. I don't know what size it is, but it's like carburetor jet restriction. And that came with the turbo kit. So it's not like I bought the wrong thing or, something wasn't intended. That all came with this crappy turbo kit. So apparently these turbos actually like oil. So I was told to hog that hole out quite a bit. I think it's like an 1/8 inch drill bit now. So now it gets a lot of oil through it. So hopefully this one will live. And that small oil restrictor combined with the fact that this engine doesn't have great oil pressure. It only has like 30 pounds of pressure with 2050 in it when it's cold. But this one does turn much better than the old one. So hopefully that will fix that issue. So let's have a little sit down here, and I'll cover a lot of this stuff that's been going on in the comment section since I started building this thing. Because I figured out I never actually gave you like a definitive rundown of what this is and why things are happening. I posted it on Facebook and things, but if you guys aren't friends with me, you wouldn't know it. And I mentioned it on some other channels, like the regular car reviews channel. There was a, podcast Q&A thing a few weeks ago, which I kind of covered some things. So this whole shenanigan started. I found this truck for sale, and if you go back, way back, it had a bad motor, it had a rod knock. So I bought this truck with the pure intention of putting a turbo LS in it and ripping it out, ripping the 350 out. And what happened was, I was like, why don't I just put another small block in it just so I can move it around the yard and drive it if I have to, because if it doesn't run, it's never going to get worked on, it's going to get pushed in the weeds and all that. And then that snowballed into when I was cruising eBay, or someone posted, I forget how it happened, somebody posted this turbo kit. And I was like, ooh, I haven't seen that turbo kit before. I've only ever seen the stupid twin turbo ones and everything. So That's where all this happened. Now, the first thing that gets asked, even in the original video of me unboxing this turbo kit, is everyone asking, what turbo kit is it? And how do I like it? Should you buy it? I don't know the part number. I don't know where you can get it anymore. It was literally on eBay as like small block Chevy turbo kit. I don't even know if it's still available because now this is like 2 years ago. And should you buy it? No, it's horrendous. I would have been so much better off just making the manifolds from scratch, because you can't get an engine bay bigger than the engine bay in this truck and it still hits everything. If you go back, it had nothing but problems. It hits the spark plugs. It doesn't even connect to itself from one manifold to the other. So yeah, it's junk. I should have just made everything from scratch. The whole stainless kit is paper thin, so it's probably just going to burn out if I actually make any power through it, or just the weight of the turbo is going to rip it off. So this entire project has basically just been out of brute stubbornness to make this kit work. And after everything's said and done, it probably won't be long for this world. So after I bought the turbo kit, my next thing was that I wanted to basically turbo something as simply as possible, because everyone goes to EFI or a built blow-through carb or things like that. So I had read things online for years about how they turbo cars back in the 60s and 70s, and this is basically it. So I wanted to see how you could do it, like all mechanical, no electronics, no MSD like boost timing box, no built blow-through carb, no EFI, no electric throttle body injection, no electric fuel pump, anything like that. And that's what you got here. So I modified a stock Holley 650 mechanical secondary double pumper to be a blow-through carb. So when everyone's in the videos asking why I'm not running a blow-through carb, I am running a blow-through carb. I did the modifications to it. The difference is that this is a very basic modification. It follows a write-up online from the bowels of the internet called the Hangar 18 mods. If you search it, it comes right up, tells you how to do this, what to drill, what to fill, all that stuff. And the difference between buying a blow-through carb and this carb is that if you buy one, you're going to get what's called a boost reference power valve. And that will actually, the carburetor will be able to actually meter fuel differently if you're, say, under load out of boost versus under load in boost. Where this carb, as soon as it sees a vacuum drop, it's going to add as much fuel as it needs if it was under full boost. So basically, it's like its part throttle is going to be a lot better with an actual purpose-built blow-through carb. This thing, as soon as you press the gas past a certain point, it's going to go into full diesel mode, blowing black smoke out, whether the air is there or not. But a purpose-built blow-through carb is going to cost you at least like $600-700. I have all of $90 in this carburetor. The carburetor was $50 on eBay, and I spent about $40 in parts modifying it. So there you go. This we can get out of $90 for a fuel system. Because a lot of people one of the reasons they go to LS is that they already have a really great injection and fuel system from the factory, versus putting EFI or something else on a regular small block. It's going to cost you, well, now it's like $1,000 for a blow-through throttle body setup. But before it was like $3,000, you're going to spend like $1,000 in carburetor. When you just get the LS stuff, what it comes with is fine. So for $90, I have a fuel system for a turbo. The other piece of the puzzle of this is the mechanical fuel pump, which is just a standard performance small block Chevy mechanical fuel pump. But I drilled a hole in the vent, which I run a boost reference line to, which is one of the hoses coming out of the bonnet there. And that will actually turn the fuel pump into a rising rate fuel pump. And what that means is, so no boost involved, the pump puts out about 5 or 6 pounds of pressure, which is what a carburetor likes. They like between like 2 and 6, depending on what carburetor and everything. But say you had 6 pounds of turbo pressure boost blowing into the carburetor. Now the fuel was no longer going to be able to push in the carburetor because they're pushing against each other. So what the rising rate does is, if I have 6 pounds of fuel pressure with 0 pounds of boost, if I have 1 pound of boost, I now have 7 pounds of fuel pressure, and it keeps going like that. So that allows the carburetor to keep functioning while there's air blowing into it. Drawback to this is that it's only safe to about 10 pounds of boost before you tear the rubber diaphragm in the fuel pump, and then fuel goes in your oil. But by the time that even happens, you already turned your pistons to lava and they're out your tailpipe. So there's a few questions. Another thing that comes up is, why don't I have an intercooler? On a carburetor, because of how they work, you can look up Bernoulli's principle and actually the physics of drawing a liquid through an orifice, which is how your air conditioning system works. I won't go into the whole technicalities of that. But from one end of the carburetor to the other, depending on power levels, a lot of variables, but you can see up to 100 degree Fahrenheit decrease in temperatures. So basically the carburetor itself is intercooling the charge. And this will work up to a certain boost level, which I'm way under. So it's kind of an argument of, at the boost level I'm at, which is only about 8 or 9 pounds of boost, if the intercooler would even be a benefit or actually just restricting the air inlet. The only way I could figure this out is I could actually put an air intake temperature sensor probably in the intake, and we could actually get some data on this. Maybe I'll do that. The reason I don't run more boost, I already explained. I'm running like 8 pounds. So that kind of explains why there's not a lot of horsepower involved in this. I'm running distributor, I welded the weights on it, and there's no vacuum advance, so I'm running the ignition locked out at 26 degrees, and I'm running 8 pounds of boost. So there's why it didn't make that much power. But in reality, I was only aiming to make about 300, and in the dyno video, we were letting off at about 4,500 RPM, which it was breaking up and having other issues. But I think it was actually breaking up on the dyno due to ignition. I just have a suspicion. I'll find out more now this is fixed. We can do it again and see what the actual issue is, but I have a feeling it was blowing the spark out because it was fine up to that point and it wasn't really running lean. So that's my theory there. And I don't know, I think I covered about everything. So where am I going from here? Like I said, out of brute stubbornness, I want to get this setup working for whatever it is. I mean, honestly, with more tuning, it made like 280 on the dyno, like 270 something on its best run. It'll probably make like 300 to 320 horsepower once everything's cleaned up to the wheels. But this motor is an 84 Chevy truck motor. I have like a 3/4 ton pickup truck. From Chevy, they only rated it at like 160 crank. Realistically, it probably made about 200 to 220 horsepower at the crank. And I'm measuring 280 at the wheels. So into a manual trans, that much loss. But right now it's making 300 crank. If it's making 320 at the wheels, it's going to be making probably like 340, 350 crank. So it's almost 100% increase in power with this turbo on it. So it's not like it's not working, because everyone's used to seeing 1,000 horsepower and everything with a V8 and a turbo on it. It's not really realistic without, a lot more involved. So anyway, what's next for this? So after I get it all cleaned up, then I have a choice of where I want to go. Things that will happen for sure is I'm going to put an automatic trans in it, because this pickup truck's manual trans is just junk. By the time you shift it, you lose everything the turbo's wound up to be. I found out the truck also has highway gears in it. I don't know why it has highway gears, but that makes it kind of sackless. I think it has like 308s or something in it, so that should probably get changed something a little more aggressive. I want to make my own turbo hot side for it, get rid of this eBay garbage, and I have all the room in the world. I could make the pipes go up and away from the heads a foot on each side, and it still wouldn't hit anything, and I would be able to change the spark plugs, which I can't right now. If these spark plugs foul out, I gotta pull the whole turbo kit off to change them. So that's one of the things that'll definitely happen. Beyond that, I would like to put a stock Vortec engine in it, which would be a 96 through like 02 350, because those were actually like probably the peak development for the small block, other than the LT1 cars, and I hate LT1 cars. But I'd be curious to see how a stock Vortec motor works versus an LS with a turbo on it. And then same thing, put a cam in the Vortec motor and kind of experiment and see what it's like. I probably would go EFI in that case. I'd probably put a fuel cell in the back, electric pump, and see what happens. Another option would be a junk 454 with a blow-through carb and probably 2 of these eBay GT45 turbos. See what that does. Option 3 I like to play with would be a Trailblazer inline 6, a 4.2 liter, what the series is, but I'm curious to see how those do. I've heard they don't really make, they don't make power, but they don't hold up to anything over like 500 wheel. They make about 275 stock, but I'd be curious to see what happens with a turbo, and not a lot of people doing it. So that's pretty much where we're at with this. I hope that clears up a lot of the questions that people keep asking in the comments, like why I don't do this, why I don't do this. I know what you guys are saying is better, like it would be better to have EFI and it would be better to have an LS, but it's just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to see what happens if you did this as an experiment, because not many other people are doing it, or not many people did it on YouTube. It's just old magazine articles and stuff from the 70s. I wanted to see what happens if you try what I did. But yeah, there's basically a rundown of the truck, the future with it, where it stands right now. It's not blown up. Well, technically the turbo blew up, but it's not blown up. So there will be more of it in general. I'm just very busy. I only get to fiddle with the thing maybe like an hour a week. But there will be more updates in the future. Thanks for watching. Like I said, ask any other questions. I'll try and answer them. Enjoy.